a regular board meeting of the Cupper Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. And it's Wednesday, May 22nd. Why don't we start with a roll call? Tori, if you
Manager
could.
Lowe. Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Here.
Manager Taves.
Here.
President Schmaltz.
Here. So we have a quorum then, so we'll move on. The next is setting of the meeting agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda from anyone? Okay, hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
So moved.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Let's do a roll call vote.
I'm gonna call Manager Lowe one more time. Oh, he's just entering the waiting room.
Let's call him last and that's
Okay.
fine.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Lowe.
One moment here, I gotta get him the ability to unmute. All right, Chris, you should be good to be able to unmute yourself.
That's good.
Okay, so then moving on, then item 3 is the consent agenda, and this evening we have 3 items on the consent agenda: the regular board meeting minutes of April 11th, 2024, the regular board meeting minutes of April 24th, 2024, and the regular board meeting minutes of April 25th, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Any additional discussion or comments? Okay, hearing none, then Tori, could you do a roll call vote?
Manager Lowe.
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye. So the consent agenda motion is passed. Moving on to item 4, the public open forum. I'll declare the public open forum open. Do we have any guests in the audience that would like to address the board? I don't see anyone, so I'll just ask one more time. Anyone in the audience would like to address the board? Seeing none, then I'm just going to declare the public open forum closed. Moving on then to Citizen Advisory Committee update.
President and Managers, we're Hayden Reed here this evening to present that.
All right, good evening, Mr. President and Managers. Attached, you'll see the update from our Tuesday, May 14th meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee. The main agenda item for that meeting was a presentation from Emily Hines on the budget. It was the same presentation that the board received earlier. The CAC has expressed an interest in being a little bit more engaged in the budget process. So they enjoyed the budget presentation and will be submitting some comments to me that I'll be passing along to Emily at the end of the month. And then also we began planning what we're calling a summer excursion. So the CAC has enjoyed kind of the trips that we've taken in the past 2 years. We'd like to do something similar this year. So we're just in the planning stages of that.
Yeah, Aiden, I saw some people may have had questions on the budget. Are they gonna send them in to us before the June 10th deadline?
Yep, so I'm collecting comments from the committee members by the end of the month is their kind of tentative deadline for that. And then we'll be collating them and I'll pass them along to the board via Emily.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the CAC? Okay, thank you, Aiden. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Aquatic invasive species update.
Yeah, Mr. President and Managers, we have Garrett online here this evening. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Mr. President and Managers, just a couple updates for everyone. As you're aware, last month we had to perform the Curlew pondweed treatments early, just given the unusual winter weather and the DNR moving up that treatment deadline. So today I don't have the assessment surveys available quite yet, but I was able to connect with Steve McComas, and they have been performed for Shields, Moody, Bone, and Comfort Lake. He's going to give Forest Lake another week or two just to allow the curlew to grow maybe a little bit more and get a proper assessment of what the year-end acreage would be on that. But from what he has surveyed, he found that overall things were looking really good. The treatment on Shields Lake was very effective despite only treating 1 acre this year. Moody Lake was looking very good. Considering we did not do a treatment to protect that native transplanting, we did. Bone Lake was looking really good, and then Comfort Lake as well. It sounds like the treatment was very effective on that water body. While he was out on Comfort Lake, they did an EWM delineation a little bit early just to keep an eye on things, and they were not able to find anything at this time. So they'll be back out probably later in June to do a proper EWM delineation on all the major lakes, but again on Comfort Lake. But as of right now on Comfort Lake, he's not finding anything. The watercraft inspection program, we have a team of 8. We had someone drop off today, unfortunately, but we had 9, we have 8, which is still very good. And going into the holiday weekend here for Memorial Weekend, we have 1 inspector at every launch every day. So that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We're going to have very excellent coverage, and I'll be chatting with some of the watercraft inspectors here yet this week, get them prepared and ready for what we anticipate being a busy weekend. Maybe some rain forecasted, but we'll definitely have the coverage and provide, a lot of educational opportunities or interactions with the public. So I just want to make sure they're ready for that. Moving on to the AIS comp plan that was approved at the last regular board meeting, and some of the comments and feedback on that I am working through. One being the rapid response plan, just revising that and adding a little more specificity and more detail of the resources and partnerships. So getting close to wrapping that up. But during that process, the idea of creating potentially a rapid response task force came up, where, we're researching and pulling together resources for how we would respond to rapid response. And, we have our couple core partners that would work with us on certain things, just like they did on Bone Lake. And so the idea is to create a simple questionnaire that could be sent out to a broad range, say the metro area of different organizations, and then they could identify which species, AIS species of concern they're interested in, what areas of a rapid response they would potentially partner or collaborate on, what resources they have available, and so on and so forth. And then this would be shared amongst all the partners. So in the event of zebra mussels in a different organization, they could see that the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, they managed some in 2019 on Bone Lake, they could be a part of that conversation. And if something were to come to our district, we would know exactly who the partners would potentially be to assist on the planning and collaboration on that. So more to come on that, but I did meet with the DNR on Monday to discuss that idea, and they seem to enjoy it and have a lot of good feedback. And then I'll be meeting this Friday with more partners to flesh that out more. Piggybacking on that, I will be reaching out to lake associations here shortly to set up meetings to discuss kind of the district's rapid response plan. Just go over how theoretically that whole process would run in the event of a new introduction, and identify some areas of partnership or collaboration on that effort, and then maybe address any other questions or concerns the lake associations have individually on just AIS management in general. So I'll be reaching out shortly there. And then the last topic is the Forest Lake outlet weir. So President Schmaltz stopped in the office this morning and noted to staff that he observed common carp accumulating on the downstream side of the weir there on the outlet of Forest Lake, and even noted that some were able to jump over and get into Forest Lake. So obviously this was pretty concerning, but we had some resources available, the rapid response plan being one, and we immediately started contacting some of our resources of what we could potentially do, namely our contacts at the DNR, and to perform any type of removal, it would take several days to several weeks to get a permit, even just to get a fishing net to scoop them up, which seems ridiculous, but that is how the system works, I guess. So the idea initially was to potentially put up some sort of temporary gates or fencing that could potentially stop them. We had kind of had the plan ready, but ultimately the district decided that due to the high flow levels, like the velocity of the water, and just the unstable footing, that it posed a bit of a safety concern. So so instead, Blaine and I went out and then looked downstream of the weir structure to find any blockages that might be raising the water level to allow this to happen. We did find one tree across the stretch of the river and cleaned some debris, which opened up the river a little bit and provided a little more flow. So hopefully that water level will come down a little bit more to the point where these carp aren't able to have quite the volume of water necessary to jump over that weir structure. But we've already been discussing the structure itself, the design with EOR and the engineers, and trying to think long-term what could potentially be done to prevent this in the future. Just because this is the first time I've seen carp at that structure since I've been with the district. So just trying to do some planning ahead now. And with that, I can take any questions if there are any.
Well, just a couple of comments. Have we looked at whether or not the businesses along the Sunrise have any blocks in the Sunrise? If we haven't done that, we should do that, because the company on the corner there that likes to park their vehicles, their commercial vehicles, closer than they should, beyond the 100-foot setback. And we discovered also that they were trespassing, or they were going over the river further down on the north end of their lot. So I would check to make sure that they're not blocking it somehow or impeding somehow, if it's not a total blockage. And there's a couple of other businesses along the Sunrise right in that park that also have materials very close to the river. And with the high rain, some of that actually slid into the river, that might be causing some of that backup. I find it very curious that we have fish going from that area north into Forest Lake. I've never heard of that
Well,
happening.
every time you get a big rain, they're gonna do it.
Well, possibly, but I've never had that brought to our
Especially in the
attention.
spring, they're spawning, they're trying to get to the lakes. So you have a heavy
Yeah.
rain, they're gonna try to get in pipes and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, we thought it was because, they've been there, I've observed them in the past. But that was when the barrier was, I don't want to say disintegrated, but it was in disrepair. And so I thought that was the principal thing, but now we've had high flows under the new construction. This is.
Going upstream though, against the current.
That's what they
That's
all,
what you're-
Yeah,
yeah.
so, but
Pike
Yeah.
and Wall,
I've just
everything do that.
I've never had anybody bring that
Yeah.
to our attention before. It's interesting.
In fact, one of the questions I had, here it is, do we have any kind of a barrier to keep them out of Cranberry Lake? Do you know if there's a barrier up there?
I'm not aware of any structure that's keeping them out of that, no.
So then I'd like to have you, with Mike's permission, to take a ride up there tomorrow and walk up there and see if there's anything going through those pipes back. Because then they get up in Cranberry, they're gonna spawn. And if they're gonna be spawned, there's gonna be thousands of new carp coming down into Forest Lake. And that's not gonna be good, so. And then you should check Shield Lake also, see if that barrier is working. Because this is the time of year that they're gonna try to migrate, and especially with a big rain like this and the water's being high. they're gonna go everywhere, so,
Right.
uh,
Probably all of them.
I can check the Shields Lake barrier. I
yeah, that's
suspect
the
that one
most
is good.
common one, but are there any
Right.
other lakes like the ones? The little ponds off of North Shore Trail, you know, there's two of them. And there's a channel, can they go in there and spawn?
Yes, a lot of those ditched areas could be breeding grounds for them.
I will note that was kind of why I was surprised with our Forest Lake carp population assessment last summer. You know, I suspected there's all these different basins and channels for them to swim down and spawn in, that the carp population of Forest Lake would certainly be above the management threshold. However, the results indicated something quite surprising that I had mentioned at the year-end report. So the management threshold from, you know, research with MACERC and others, that about 90 pounds of carp per acre is where you start to see adverse effects to water clarity, native plant vegetation, and so on. The Forest Lake carp population as of last year is between 44 pounds and 57 pounds. So definitely, we obviously don't want to see more carp coming into the basin. However, the few that have gotten over are not going to be, I would say, likely detrimental to the water body or the system. And also the other thing that we can kind of observe from some of the results that we have is that the carp that have been captured in both our survey that we performed last year and then the DNR surveys, that they're large fish, which indicates that there's probably not a lot of successful recruitment in the basin, meaning that the native game fish species are probably eating a lot of the eggs and juveniles before they're able to mature. So if there's a glimmer of hope there, that's at least encouraging.
Are we using our engineering contracts to help with deciding what to do with this issue
Yes,
and tapping into their expertise, Blue Water and EOR?
Yep.
Good.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions for Garrett?
Manager Smalls.
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
I have a question for Garrett. Garrett, I'm looking at the chart, the graph that you have for the Bone Lake AIS budget summary. And it appears that we're combining the boat inspection budget and the AIS budget together. Is that correct?
Yes, I kind of consider the watercraft inspection program under the umbrella of the AIS program.
I just want to give a little caution with that, because I know the Bone Lake Association approved money for the boat inspections only, not for AIS treatment. So I don't know. I think, we may want to separate those budgets.
That is, I did not think about that. I can add information alongside the financial contributors' names that indicate where that money's going. So next to Bone Lake Association and Scandia Lions Club, I could put like a watercraft inspection or something along those lines.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Dave, for the question. Any other questions? Okay, Garrett, thank you very much. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, which would be the Heath Avenue iron enhanced sand filter feasibility study.
President managers, with the district engineer and other staff, Kyle in particular. I think they're available to give a short background on the proposal itself. And if there's any more questions, we can proceed from there. I can give a little update on the property acquisition too. Kyle, are you taking this or is it Dan?
I can jump in, yeah. Sorry, I was having a little technical issue with my computer here. It's just gonna pull up the slides I have here. If I can share. All right, can you see the PDF? Okay. Apologize, for some reason it's not going full screen on my computer here, but good evening, managers and board president. As Mike Kenny mentioned, I'll be introducing the Heath Avenue Iron and Hand Sand Filter Project. We're bringing forward the scope for feasibility design for this project. Just a brief overview on location. The red circle here is south of Comfort Lake, west of Little Comfort. This is Highway 8 on the north end here. Here's a zoomed in schematic of the project where we'd be proposing to tie into an existing storm pipe and diverting that via a pump and treat system into 2 iron and hand sand filter basins, which would then drain back into that storm pipe. The drainage area is approximately 1,000 acres. For reference, this would be about equivalent scale-wise to the County Road 50 iron and hand sand filter project in terms of footprint. It'd be a slightly larger drainage area, as I mentioned, about 1,000 acres. County Road 50 is approximately 800. And then looking at performance, you know, with our pre-feasibility work that we've done, we're looking at treating roughly 1/3 of the total volume and about 1/5 of the total phosphorus load, which comes out to just under 80 pounds of total phosphorus reduction over the 25-year design life of the project. And if the board does decide to move forward with that, our next steps would be completing the Clean Water Fund grant application and feasibility study late summer, early fall 2024. And if there are any questions on the scope as well, I'm happy to respond.
No, I was just a comment, if I may.
Go ahead, Manager Anderson.
I was happy to see the staging of this project so that we can adapt to it as time goes on, because it's gonna take a while. And there's still some moving parts that haven't been resolved. Of course, the big one is the location. So I'm glad to see that that principle is being used here.
Anything else, Manager Anderson?
No, that slide right there is, you know, my concern is that we're attacking this, I think it's 375 pounds of phosphorus from the phosphorus report from a number of years ago. That's entering Little Comfort right in that area. So, we're at least taking the first stab at that. And then later on, I think in the year, we'll talk about some of the other possibilities.
Okay.
Once Mike and I meet with the OR on the Comfort Lake issues.
Any other questions for Kyle? I just had a couple. One is that, do we have any estimate of what the cost, estimated cost per pound would be?
We do, it is, I'm gonna add the caveat, it is very conservative and, you know, we're certainly in pre-feasibility. I would say it on the high end, it's about $1,000 per pound.
Okay.
Of phosphorus removed. I don't quote me on it, but in all likelihood, that will likely go down with feasibility and final design. There's a fairly high contingency factor built into that number.
Okay. Yeah, and the project we've been doing lately are more expensive because we've taken all the cream off the top, I think, so, but maybe with monitoring, we could find some new areas too, but the other question I have is that the Clean Water Fund, is that the same as the Lower St. Croix opportunity for grant money? Because they took some of that money, so can we also apply to the Lower St. Croix for a grant?
Yes, but we've had more success with the competitive Clean Water Fund.
Okay,
So that would be our first, and actually.
you couldn't get additional money for something else, for other costs that weren't covered by the Clean Water Fund?
Well, we can, that's what we did with the Highway 61
Okay.
project, and so, and you will recall that with Emily's involvement on that group, it's one of the things that we have advocated actually is for our partners to go to the Clean Water Fund first, and then come to Lower St. Croix,
Okay,
so.
all right, thank you. I'm just glad we're looking at that, because it is money, if we can tap into it, would be great. So, let's, get the motion on the floor. So someone make the recommended motion?
I'll move to authorize the administrator on advice of council to enter into an agreement with EOR in accordance with the May 14th scope of work and in an amount not to exceed $58,784.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second to that motion?
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Manager Baki. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional questions or discussion that we'd like to have on this? Okay, hearing none, then, I'll ask Tori to do a roll call vote for us.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye, so motion carries. Moving on then to the, Minnesota Watershed Summer Tour delegates.
Well, Mr. President, managers, the tour is in the Twin Cities this year, so, close by. The agenda is out, at least a tentative. And if managers can attend either the in-person presentations for the afternoon of the 25th and then the evening social, or else go on the bus tour the following day. Just to note they'll part at 8 AM. And that'll likely be a full day. I guess there's,
So do we have anybody interested in going right now?
I would like to go.
Okay,
I would as well.
okay, thank you. Good, that's two.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to find, there is a presentation on, flood control.
Mhm.
And I think I'd asked at an earlier meeting, and then maybe we'll get this at our next flood control meeting, but I would like to have EOR or someone give us some idea of what kind of costs we're looking at, like for a 100-acre foot project. Are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars? That's gonna affect our cash flow and project costs for the next 3 or 4 years. And I'd like to get a feel for how big that is or how small it is compared to what we've been doing in the past. We don't need an answer tonight, but we're working on the budget now, and so that's something we have to look forward to in the next couple of years, I hopefully would think.
Grants.
Grants, yeah.
There's a lot of money out there for floodplains and climate
Yes, okay.
change. Huge piece of legislation just passed in the legislature here, all about climate change and these issues that we deal with day in and day out.
Right. So do we have to make motions to attend for those 2 to 10? We do, don't we?
I think just from public expenditure standpoint, if I recall, just that the.
Because it's listed as a decision action, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'll make the motion to authorize any managers and appropriate staff to attend the Minnesota Watersheds Tour. So I'm changing that motion just a little bit.
So somebody else could go. Yeah.
So anybody on the board should go if they have the time to go, because you learn a lot when you go to these, and this is something really close to us. This is that Alliance Field area for the soccer, Minnesota soccer team, and what they did in that area of St. Paul is remarkable. It's all urban, so they did some pretty innovative things to control all the water and where it's going and how it's being treated.
So some of that might pertain to the Broadway expansion program? That's the
Could.
city of Forest Lake, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought probably what they're doing is recycling all the stormwater for the toilets and all that kind of stuff, like they did at the ballpark. We went
Part of
there.
it, I think they did a lot of things.
Yeah, they probably copied that, I'm sure, so.
Mr. President, I meant to note that the motion actually should just simply include not just that authorized, but also to expend the funds for.
Isn't that inherent in the motion? No? Okay, all right.
Not according to council, so.
I will, I will add to the motion, that, to cover the costs of any manager and staff attending this event.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
I think Manager Baki
Oh, he
already.
did, okay, thank you. All right, then, any other questions or discussion? Mike, go ahead.
Will manager be paid per diem for this?
Of course.
Just want to make sure that.
Do we have to add that too?
No, just council question. We just wanted to make sure, so.
Oh. Isn't that covered in, will cover the expense of anyone attending? I think we're kind of splitting hairs here, but whatever.
Right,
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any other comments or questions? Hearing
I
none,
did
then-
not second that.
Oh,
Oh, you
I'm
didn't?
sorry.
No,
Okay, so I'll second it then. Manager Anderson's, motion. And hearing no other comments, I'll call ask Cory to do a roll call vote.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye, so the motion carries. Item C is insurance liability coverage waiver. And this is another action item.
correct, Mr. President, annually, the district, receives this request from the Minnesota cities. And, historically, the district has, elected to not waive the monetary limits.
So does someone want to make that motion, please?
I'll move. I'll move to elect the member does not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability established by Minnesota statute 466.04. Option provided on the LMCIT section 1 liability coverage waiver form.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second to that motion?
I can second that.
Okay, thank you, Manager Taves. Any other additional discussion? If not, I'll call for the,
Manager Schmaltz,
go ahead, Manager Baki.
just to clarify, does this include the purchase of liability insurance to cover us as board managers?
Yes, it's, well, I think that's inherently what it's for. We can send out the policy. Maybe distribute that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. So I just want to clarify that we are purchasing liability insurance for the managers, and that's part of this motion. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Okay.
Well, it's not the purchase of it as much as it is this statement that we're not waiving limits on
Sure.
municipal tort liability.
Correct. These are two different
Yeah,
things.
so,
Right.
yes.
Mhm.
So your question, are you covered or not? Is that what you're asking, Manager Baki?
Yeah, it's just not clear to me in this motion that we're purchasing liability insurance.
Mr. President, managers, yeah, the manager Anderson noted that this motion, isn't speaking to that particular action of whether or not to buy it. It's simply that, so from historical record, of council description, basically that if you were to waive it, then if somebody was to sue the district, you could pay for the additional coverage, but it would just largely encourage people to pursue a higher dollar amount. So this standard practice has been for the district, based on council's recommendation, is to proceed with not waiving the monetary limit. That's just that component of what we are buying. The policy itself, the district acquires along with personal property insurance for the district. And so we can send out the policies that we currently have, so the managers can see what those include.
Thank you.
Hey, welcome. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask Tori to do the roll call vote on this motion.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Tays,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye, so motion carries. Old business, crisis communication plan.
Mr. President, managers, so the board had directed staff last August to proceed with contracting with MP&G based off their work and experience on the SALT campaign. And this was one of the things that was included in that. So we understand that this would be, not necessarily a final all-encompassing crisis communication plan, but at least sets a framework up for the board. At least at this juncture. And if there are comments or suggested edits, we can certainly work with them to incorporate them and get a final document, or at least on record.
Before we discuss this, would someone like to make the motion? Get that on the floor? Somebody out there in Netherland?
I will move to approve the crisis communication plan as presented.
Thank you, Manager Tays. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll open it up for discussion, questions, comments, or presentation, if there's anything we have to review.
Is there a presenter?
There is not.
No.
But this is from that agency that we
From
hired to
APG,
do
yeah.
PR. I have some comments. My first comment, I've talked to Mike about this. I was shocked when I heard that they were assigned this project, because we specifically last fall had the conversation about having them do the planning for the launch of the Shoreline program. And that just seemed to drag on and on and on, and we got nowhere. And then to hear that they were assigned this project, I wouldn't have thought it was in their wheelhouse. But I was very impressed with this. And and I think all the points, at least as I know them, are covered, and they're covered really well. So I was shocked and surprised and happy that it came out this well. The one thing that did cross my mind, though, is that I think we, as a district, have to look at our rules and update our rules in concert with having this type of now detailed crisis plan. And some of it, especially when you get into that area where you're one of the critical factors is if anyone sees a pollutant going into a water body for any reason, then we are supposed to notify the district, and I'm sure we're gonna have people set up to handle this kind of thing, or maybe it's the engineers. I don't know that part as well just yet, but I think we're gonna have to look at our rules and maybe have our engineers look at the rules first to determine if we need to update any of them, or if we need to also have some type of joint memorandum of understanding with the DNR in particular, or maybe even MPCA, so that we can report accurately from the field right away and not have to worry about which agency and, where does this information go and so on. So those were the only things that I thought needed to be addressed, and that can happen in an addendum.
Good comments, Manager Anderson. Any other thoughts or comments?
Manager Schmaltz.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at page 12. And it talks about at each stage of crisis communications. And it talks about 1, emergency services, police, fire, medical, and number 2, internal stakeholders. and they list staff, commissioners, and CAC members. I'm just thinking, perhaps that should be changed a bit to include board managers. I'm not sure about the CAC members as a number 2 stage of a crisis, but that we should take a look at that.
Thank you, Manager Baki.
You know, that's a good point, but 'cause I didn't even think about that because I assumed that the board would be, you know, the first people that are notified, but it's really good to have it spelled out.
And so just to follow up on that too, and I assume that the number 1 contact is Mr. Kinney. And then you know, at some point we need to determine who's number 2, who's number 3. So we know, so it's explicit.
Yeah.
Right, that's probably meant to be board members, because
Mhm.
county commissioners are not internal.
Any other observations or comments?
But I agree with Manager Anderson. I mean, this is a good document to have, and I'm glad to see that we're absolutely looking at something carefully and getting some clear steps put forward as to how we respond.
I felt the same way, and I think that they made the suggestion that, you know, the 2-page summary is a good thing to have in front of you, because I summarizes all the steps. And then the last 3 pages are on the cheat sheets about how to conduct yourself and how to prepare for things. So those 5 pages should be put somewhere where you can access them, but maybe put them in plastic so you can get to them quickly, and you know where they are. And not file them away where you can't find them. So I think
Yeah.
they're very helpful. Those 5 sheets are very
Yeah, a
helpful.
little
so.
pamphlet. You can make a little pamphlet out of those too. Mhm.
Anything else? Then we need to, so we have a motion on this already, don't we? Yeah, we do. So let's do a roll call vote then to accept approve the crisis communication plan.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye. So the motion carries and the plan is accepted. So, thank you, good work on that. The next item is item B, the public relations research update.
Well, Mr. President Manager, it's, I don't know if there's really much more to provide other than what was presented here. That we're proceeding with some of the other work that was on this particular task for MP&G. So the only one thing is that I separately was in contact with Dr. May Davenport from the University of Minnesota. That's her area of expertise is in the social sciences of adoption of conservation plans, you know, conservation activities. And so one area that she's not worked in is actually in this and the shoreline. So I started the conversation with her and thought it would be good to partner with, you know, have a side-by-side or coordinated effort with MP&G. But we just discussed at the staff level here just in the last couple of days, and fundamentally, I just didn't see why the district would go alone on this. So I'm reaching out to Jeff Forster with Minnesota Lakes and Rivers to see if they would be interested in a larger effort, because anything with the University of Minnesota would require some, you know, some amount of budget, and even if it's 20,000, if we may be the entity helping to coordinate the leading, but it would be nice if other partners. And I'm just thinking about the way that people stepped up with respect to evaluating the wake boats. You know, once that was put out there, it quickly got to the funding goal that they wanted. So given that this is a statewide issue, and I think it'd be worth pulling her in, or Dr. Davenport, but I don't think entirely at the district's expense. So, so maybe not proceeding at the pace that we wanted it with this. But that being said, both Aiden and Adam, part of their graduate work, worked on similar types of, some of their research included some of this, adoption, research, if you will, and what are some of the barriers? So, so we have some very talented staff in that area already, so we can collect information. We did have a focus group, got some initial information. So, and Adam provided that to me just the other day. But I think that we'll, continue to work with MPG and as laid out here, at least, get something presented to the board.
So this research is going on currently, correct? Am I correct on that?
Correct.
So what is a key informant interviews? Can you explain what that is, or did someone?
Well, that had, my understanding is that it was, well, actually, I'm not sure. I thought it was, with, specific interviews with, individuals, shoreline owners.
Yeah, so
Randomly.
this is actually built around shorelines and not so much anything else, just focusing on that one topic, which is good,
Correct.
okay.
Right, and that's what I was talking about with Dr. Davenport too, that she would be,
I mean, 2 is not a very large sample size unless it's 2 groups. That's what I was asking for statistically. No, but they'll come back with something, we'll get into it at that point in time.
Yeah, I thought that meant staff here. The two key informant interviews. So with staff, people
yeah, no,
could be bored.
no, it was, Emily's confirmed that it was with the shoreline owners, so,
Really?
both
Both of them? Both the,
and the focus
First-
groups.
yeah,
right, Were
okay.
people that, focus groups were those individuals that had contacted the district but did not go forward with the project. So,
doesn't make sense that that would be with shoreline owners on messages, materials and assessments. Oh, well,
Do we have a budget on this? How is this being paid for? Because I don't remember approving.
yeah, there was $13,000 last.
Okay,
Well,
Right.
we, in essence, carried forward.
good, all right, thank
I'm
you.
not sure what we have to do.
Any other questions or comments, Manager Anderson?
yeah, Dr. Davenport was a speaker on one of the summer tours with the Lower St. Croix on the paddle boats. She talked about doing this survey work. And I think she was the one that Carnelian Marine used to do their survey. So theirs was done on that community scale. And I don't think their budget's any bigger than ours. Maybe, have you talked to Carnelian Marine to see what this costs them, if anything?
I did not. I mean, we were thinking it was maybe 20,000,
Mhm.
probably to work with Dr. Davenport, but we already have this initiative. And then we also are part of the, we're the watershed organization that's, as part of the Natural Shoreline Partnership.
Mhm.
And again, I think just out of, well, we know the value of coordination, whether it's with our cities or others, and what happens when we don't, so, but Jeff Forster is out of town for a couple weeks, so I'll wait till he returns and then just reach out to him to see what interest the partnership might have in, collaborating with that, and if nothing else, maybe they would have some specific input. So Dr. Davenport has been involved, at some level with this already, so, again, the potential synergy is there to try to get after, how do we. Like right now, what we know is that typically if we do 5 site visits, one of them, or roughly 20%, will proceed with the project. So how do we get it to 30% or 40%, right? So that's the thing that we wanna, what are some of the keywords or things that we can lead into to change the outcome?
I think those are all good goals to have, and certainly, should be the leading impetus to do something like this, but I also think that it speaks to how personalized by community these things have to be. Because what's going on with our lake shores in the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District might be completely different than another one's in another part of the state. And the lakes might be different and the needs might be different. So, you know, I'm a real fan of having that done for us so that we understand our population
Mhm.
and that we can target our population with the right things so that we have better success ratios. And then we're not using averages anymore. I mean, everything ends up being sort of an average, but you have a better chance of getting to the real local core of what's gonna motivate people.
Yes, and certainly the demographics here are different than other parts of the
Mhm.
state.
Yeah.
So
So I favor doing one specific for our district and we can implement it much faster as well. And I'm sure that there's grants out there to do this type of work. So
okay.
So I think we can get it done.
Yeah. Well, I'll coordinate with Emily, see what the breakdown is on the PR consultant, because that was one thing we were gonna look at, but maybe we can use those funds for working with Dr. Davenport.
mhm.
Okay, any other comments or questions? This is just an informational item, so we don't. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on then, to. I guess report of staff. Mike?
Right, so just. Couple things, if I get to- Agenda, I mentioned that, board had, or that staff have been out talking to the, property owners for the Iron Hand Central Filter on Heath Avenue. So they just asked, that we, make one change to the purchase agreement. I think it was very reasonable. I just talked to Blaine about it, after the meeting. And so we're gonna proceed with that. And so we would expect to have that, it'll be a contingent offer, in hand, and then we can proceed with the other. So the sequencing of all these things has been somewhat complicated, but, fortunately, we're making progress in all these areas. So, just, I guess maybe just a reminder that we do have, special board meeting on Tuesday, June 4th. For, the flood resiliency workshop. It's in the afternoon, after 2 to 4.
Let me double check.
And then when's the next budget meeting? That's 20th, right?
Correct.
So it should remind everybody on the board, and I think Emily wants everything by the end of the month, if I recall correctly, so. If that's correct, so we make sure you go through the budget and submit your ideas and questions and concerns, so. We don't get dragged out at the end of the session again, as we've done sometimes in the past.
And I believe that. So yeah, the 20th, and Emily's put materials on the website already for the board to start reviewing. So,
Okay.
thank
And
you.
what was the deadline, the end of the month, if I recall correctly? Emily, you recall what the deadline was?
Yes, if that's agreeable to the board, by May 31st would be great. And then we can kind of prepare responses in addition to what's already been posted on the website
Right,
by the 20th.
and that's a good way to get work through this stuff, I think, then everybody gets a chance to see what everybody else has been asking, and we don't have to. Keep updating everyone, so.
What day of the week is May 31st?
Friday.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why not give us that weekend, that extra weekend? I'm serious. I mean, it's
Okay.
a busy time,
Oh, I know.
so. If we can have that extra weekend,
I'm sure that's fine from the staff perspective. It's not gonna,
Cause they're not gonna work on the road the weekend anyway,
Yeah.
probably, so.
right, we're just trying to
Absolutely.
have a work-free weekend for you, but if you wanna, no, that's totally fine. Yeah. Very reasonable.
So when is the seminar or the special meeting, the 4th? June 4th?
Yeah,
June fourth
Tuesday.
from 2 to 4 p.m.
Okay. And
and June 20th from 5 to 7 p.m.
and Tori, I just suggested that Tori's been putting these in the, weekly
mhm,
event thing that she sends out. I didn't have to look at mine last week, so I had to ask her when the meetings were, and she told me it was in there, so I said.
Yeah.
We don't always look at that, Tori, believe it or not, so I think it'd be better when we have a meeting like this, that she send out a separate email to each manager and put it in there too.
Yeah, we were trying not to send out too many emails at the end of last week.
Right,
or just put it on the agenda here,
either way, yeah.
next meeting.
Right.
That's a good reminder too.
Okay.
And the budget meeting is June 20th?
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, so Mike's got the floor right, yeah, so the administrator report, so.
I don't think there's anything else.
Any questions of Mike's report?
I just
Manager
have a
Small?
question.
Yes,
Yeah, just a question regarding the over 25 community education events scheduled for this summer and fall. I think that's a wonderful thing. Kudos to the staff for getting that organized. Is it possible to get a list of those? Not the individual flyers necessarily, but just kind of a list so we know when they are, where they are, and what they're about.
Oh,
Yes, we'll work with Adam and, so, yes, Adam's very prolific in his workshop,
Mhm.
schedule, so.
The other thing, just to piggyback on that area, is to give us a report afterwards on how many people attended. I don't think that we've really gotten that kind of statistical
I think
data.
he's starting to do that.
Good,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be helpful. I just had one comment.
Go
Mr.
ahead,
President.
Madam Chair.
Under the monitoring and data assessment, one of the reasons that we wanted to do our own in-house is so that we could have access to the data earlier, periodically as the year goes on. And I'm just curious if we can have something maybe in late June, early July on the activities from this spring with all the heavy rains that we've had and especially after 3 years of drought, what things are looking like this early in the season. It would be helpful just to get that sort of insight.
Sure, we've tried to target, August for that, but we can look to move that up. It's gonna have to be in coordination with the lab, but in the EOR,
Mhm.
we can do that. If that's a board directive.
I have one other question regarding the Lassard Sam's deadline, May 27th. What does that deadline imply? What does that mean?
Manager, Mr. President, Manager Baki, so, we were looking into, a subsequent grant request for the, restoration work on the Bone Lake South. But since we do not have that property, we've been waiting, like, okay. We fundamentally, we don't want to submit for a grant request when we don't even have the property in hand. So if we want to go back to the legislature to ask for additional funds for other things in the future, we don't want to have a black eye, so to speak, about, okay, we came in and got the grant dollars for the property acquisition, and then we came back and asked for something else, and we didn't do either one. That would not be a good track record. So right now, our recommendation is that we do not proceed with submitting for this second phase yet. And that other one, the door is still open, but Blaine and I have a meeting scheduled for Friday with the landowner. It's at my request. I'm kind of hoping to get an indication as to where he's really at with things and give him a few reasons why he still may want to give us first option, but ultimately, it's the landowner's decision, right?
Okay, Manager Baki? Yeah, Dave?
Yes, I'm sending all the good vibes your way, Mr. Kinney. To get this happen. Thank you.
Okay,
You're welcome.
anything else for the administrator? Okay, moving on then to EOR.
Good evening, Mr. President and managers. I just have two quick construction updates for you all. The first is the rain garden was installed at the Moody Capstone project earlier this week, and plantings and further restoration will be done next week. At WJD6, plantings have been completed, and for both projects, pay apps and final walkthroughs are forthcoming.
Good. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Ann. Moving on then, Smith Partners. Council?
Mr. Holman's not here this evening. I don't remember him saying he wasn't,
I think we're supposed to let him know if we want him to
well, physically come.
physically come, that's true, okay,
He's probably has a.
okay,
Well, he might have been traveling too. I can't remember. He was going to Virginia too. I can't.
all right,
I'm not sure what it's.
not a big issue anymore, so, all right, okay, so moving on then, the report of the treasurer. Manager Anderson?
Yes, we have deposits of $871,168.79. Expenses of $232,511.48. And our cash on hand is over 1.65 million. So we're in good shape, and we need to transfer $275,000 this month to meet our payments for expenses last month and our obligations for payroll now and 2 weeks from now. So I will make that a motion that the board approve the transfer of funds and paying the bills.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Manager Baki. We have a motion and a second, and Tori, could you please do the roll call vote?
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye, so the motion carries. Report of officers and managers.
I just have two things. I showed, I don't know if I talked to you about, Mike, I think I did. I don't know if everybody can see this. Can you see that? Does it show up on the
No.
screen? Okay. Anyway, this is a calendar from the Minnesota Invasive Species Advisory Council. I just stumbled across this a few months back, and they have this beautiful calendar of AIS, and there's education pieces on every single month, and it's done by the DNR annually. And so we were looking at doing this for the Comfort Lake Association, and I gave it to Garrett to think about doing it for the district. They're $1 a piece, and I thought this would be a great thing for each of our lakes to have, our lake associations. And we have a sticker that we use on ours for our logo. And so the district, I don't know if the district has a logo sticker, but they're pretty cheap at Rapid Press. And that way we could both get some publicity with our local lakes as we hand out an education piece and a calendar for the new year.
That sure would cut down on volunteers. It's
Yeah, yeah,
like picking off the leeches after you come out.
Yeah. well, but they're out there working, aren't they? So anyway, so I did give this to Garrett to consider, and I just need to know before the middle of the month of July. Because if the district doesn't do it, our association will do it for our members. And you might want to consider that for Forest Lake and Bone Lake as well, Dave. So it's a really cheap way to get a good piece of material. The other thing that I wanted to just, we've talked about it a little bit tonight is just talk about the lake, the volume of water in the lakes. And on Comfort Lake in particular, I know in 2022, there was a backwash that was happening from Big Comfort to Little Comfort. Some of that had to do with the beaver dams that were upstream, closer to School Lake and so on. But just asking our staff to be mindful of those kinds of things and to let us know what to anticipate and what kinds of actions we need to take on the local association levels.
Anything else, Manager Anderson?
No, that's it.
Manager Taves?
Nothing to report.
Okay, Manager Baki?
We're looking forward to the Bone Lake delisting celebration on June 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Scandia Community Center, and I hope you all can attend. I plan to share a little history of Bone Lake, and just a little teaser is that for the last 50 years, Santa Claus has vacationed on July 4th on Bone Lake, and he does water ski around the lake and throw candy to all the children. That's a fact.
I plan to be there. Looking forward to it.
All right,
Likewise.
Manager Love, anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay, and then, the only thing I have is that, we had the city project for, BMP for stormwater mains, that I guess the decision's been made to basically fill in 4 of the 6 valleys, right, Mike? So we tried to talk with, the owner and all that of the property and just couldn't
Is
get
that
him.
the one out by the park? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the one on North Shore Trail.
Oh, no, sure. Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of a shame, but we'll have to just roll with the punch. I think we need to get a closer working relationship again with the city on some of these things, but.
So apparently the city is. There are other 3 finalists for their city administrator. And
Why they had 6 in the paper? Are they down
down
to 3
to
now?
3, and then the current one's is not.
She's not involved.
Yeah, she's not.
I saw it in the paper.
What's the impact of this again? Can you just give us a brief, or me, a brief overview?
Well, they spent all the money to put in these iron filters and now they're not gonna use them. They're gonna fill them up and restore it back to its natural state.
Oh,
So because of the owners, it was mishandled and. For everything from the engineering to the execution to the PR beforehand. And so the owners got really mad and won't give an inch now, so.
Mr. President, maybe just a little more information on that, so, so they did that project to gain credits for stormwater credits for the downtown development.
Right.
So the district has an interest in the project, from that standpoint, so there's, I know that there are some, suggestions that, you know, we have a role in this too, which we do from the standpoint that I think that, when the district had regular, monthly coordination meetings with the prior city administrator, we had fewer of these kind of incidences. So I think that we could have, potentially helped with some of that. We have an iron handstand filter right across the road, corner of Hayward Avenue. I thought there actually today, just to kind of like look at its current condition, you really don't even notice it's there. And
Except there was 3 feet of water in it this morning at 7 o'clock.
oh, but no, there's none. Right?
I know it drained right on out.
Right, so, and so when they were proposing this, I thought that was kind of what they were going to do there in a similar fashion, so, but we never, I didn't at least ever get a chance to look at any, I've still not seen any design stuff, and I don't need to. But I just think during the coordination meetings, you know, we would have probably talked through that a little bit more. And it is an eyesore as you drive by, it's not anything that I would want out in my front yard, probably either, so I would give the landowners that much of it, but it is in the city right away, so it's, so the cities, you know, could have dictated what they wanted to do at the end, in either way. So, but it's unfortunate that there wasn't further discussion on it earlier, and maybe even from the district, not unlike what we did with Broadway, is that we came in and contributed to the iron and hand sand filter portion of it, because I think, you know, and I'm not trying to, you know, it's now clearly water over the bridge. They've made the decision and they're spending the, you know, an additional $132,000 they haven't filled in. So, but it's, yeah,
How are they treating stormwater then?
they're not.
They're not. So it's going to just go,
Back
what,
the way it was,
which
Right.
is what, going directly into,
directly into the lake.
Mhm.
oh, we have something to say about that.
It's,
Well, right now, see, what they were trying to do was build credits for the downtown redevelopment. That, because for us, you know, and I feel like that was something that the district was agreeable to, was just saying. Well, hey, rather than doing it on site, which some watershed districts do, we're saying, hey, the lake. Doesn't care where the improvement comes from as long as it's occurring. So, you know, so the district was allowing through the rule process to.
Well, I get all that part.
Right,
I'm not
so-
talking about that. I'm talking about what happened on Broadway, you just mentioned.
Mhm.
We took over the design, the engineering, the implementation of that iron enhanced sand filter along Broadway. I mean, that was all the districts doing. So we helped, I think the county was involved in that too. It was the county and the
The
city.
county road, right,
Yeah.
city and the district. right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So why didn't we do that with this time? With this particular
because they
area?
didn't get us involved.
Right, it was entirely a city.
Did we
city
tell
project.
them to? I mean, did we ask them to have us be involved? Were we leading them on that front?
There was communication from the standpoint that, when they were looking for sites to be considered for
Mhm.
credits, the district had already done some similar things, like, you know, both the SWA and some what the DOR did, so we offered some suggestions, and that was when they said, oh, yeah, this is a good idea, it's in our right of way, we have control over it, and then proceeded with I think their engineer and Greg Grasky probably talked a couple of different times, but it wasn't like some of our past projects where we just had,
Mhm.
you know, better staff level coordination on an ongoing basis. So I had no idea what was going so far sideways,
Mhm. Yeah.
actually, quite some time ago.
Well, I would just, if we didn't get our engineers involved, I would request that we have our engineers involved in projects like this so that they can, especially with a community partner, so that their engineers, the communities, cities, whatever it is, local government unit, their engineer and our engineers can work together on accomplishing a good water quality project.
President Schwab,
Outcomes. So, yeah.
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
can you correct me if I'm wrong? The issue wasn't necessarily with the engineering, it was with the contractor following the engineering of the project.
Yeah, we stated that.
That's part of it, yes, but the other part is that the owners were not. The PR to sell this program to the owners.
I
was not-
understand that, I'm just talking with respect to what
you know,
the city's engineers had put together and what the contractor built were not consistent with one another, correct?
At least in one or two of the bays, I'm not sure, the other ones looked okay to me, but, the one was made like 6 feet deep, you know, which is a hazard and everything else, so, but it had to have a lot of capacity, because there's a lot of water coming into that front end, so. But,
Well, my point is this, is that the layering of this authority is the watershed districts are the supreme decider on what's going to happen for quality water outcomes. And the cities have to conform to that. And so if our engineers take the lead on this type of thing, just as what happened on Broadway years ago, then our engineers have to pass on whatever's going to take place. And if it's going to change substantially, it has to come to our board for review and authorization. but we get the outcome. Our only job is to have good water outcomes. That's it. That's all we live for.
Well, Mr. President, Manager, Justin, so the district engineer was involved from the standpoint that, you know, had an opportunity was to review. You know, because basically we had to have an agreement as to what kind of credits would. So there was that level where we were not involved was in the public relations side of it, to the marketing, and so that was, well, at least from, and this is more hearsay than anything, so a lot of it's been in the public record at the city level, which again, I've not gone and made any attempt to review, but so there was that part of it, and to Manager Lowe's point too, is that they had a lot of problems with the contractor, and it's not built as designed, so it's a combination of things that seemed like it went sideways on for the city.
Well, I understand that. My point is that we have an example of a project going right with Broadway, and that was a much bigger project from what I understand you describing this current one. And so if it's done right, the outcome is right. So that's all I'm saying, is that we can't allow a situation to occur where we, through complacency, allow stormwater untreated going into Forest Lake. So
I'm just
we need to
confused, like,
sit down with the city and get this straightened out.
who, like, if the city wants to do a project, what is our, I guess, role in that from a statute standpoint? Like, what is the difference? What is the difference between the watershed spearheading a project or the city spearheading a project? Other than if the watershed does it, we know it'll get done right, but like, I'm trying to understand who should be running these types of, who should be working on these BMPs, because it seems like the city was doing that, and they were involving us, and the city didn't hold the contractor accountable for the work that was supposed to be done based on the engineering, and it went downhill quickly from there, and now, you know, now a bunch of taxpayers' money has been spent to no benefit to the lake, which can't, and the watershed is going to take the public relations hit on this, not the city. And I'm trying to understand who dropped the ball here. Is it the city that dropped the ball, or did we as a watershed drop the ball?
Yeah.
So the original question, can someone answer whose responsibility it is to spearhead these types of projects when they involve BMPs around a lake?
Mr. President, Manager,
Go ahead.
the district, and so the city several years ago is, well, for many years ago, has been talking about redevelopment for downtown, right? So, and we proceeded maybe back started in March of 2021 or 2020, and I think we executed in sometime a year later in 2021, an agreement that set for some parameters for the city creating some stormwater credits for permitting purposes for the redevelopment of downtown. So it does not dictate what is to be done. It was more or less if we were to redevelop that area, what would be required, and then what would be acceptable. And so this was a city-led project. And again, the district and the district engineer were involved from the perspective of basically giving a head nod and saying, yeah, that looks good to us. And this is, you know, we'll review the engineering from the quantity standpoint, how much phosphorus and sediment would be reduced and what that would mean in terms of credits. So this is not very atypical. The district has led some projects, and then in coordination with the city, and you know, this and conversely here. So but from that standpoint, so some of these other ones, you know, we did High-Low Lane. That's city property. We took the lead on it. And, you know, I guess from that standpoint, but this was Cause the city. If you remember, well. For another parallels for Bixby Park. The district did that project. Using state grant dollars, so it's not available for stormwater credits for anybody, for the city or anybody else. So it's all has to do with who's paying for it. So the city wanted these credits to be available to. Either give or to sell to some would-be developer for downtown redevelopment. For the stormwater credits, so we have a component within our rules that allow for some offsetting credits to be acquired financially when the site is too restrictive. And so the district currently has a couple different sites, but that's come into play, and we have funds to help support that. And our longstanding one has been to do that channel area north of Highway 8 and east of Highway 61. There's a strip of land in that wetland that the city owns. However, the project would be expanded into the neighboring private ownership parcels. And, so it's a longer, bigger project that ultimately we would want to undertake. This was just one that the city felt was more opportunistic and saw there were some other issues occurring out there. When they had higher rain events, so they thought they could address two issues at the same time, so. But there's obviously some dynamics with the property owners there, and so I guess, we, from that standpoint, again, I think if there was more coordination, maybe we would have done, help facilitate a better outcome, but that's all speculative and hindsight at this point.
But I think the point is that as we go forward here, if there's another opportunity, we probably should at least try to get involved if we possibly can. So I think, but that, because of the credits and everything else, they had to pay for it and so forth, so that's why they wanted to take.
Right,
ownership.
right, it was their,
Is this,
right.
is the reduction of phosphorus not large enough for it to be something that the watershed would have taken on? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
we probably wouldn't have spent our own money on that project, because we have a lot of those right now, maybe 200 of them. But they run, anywhere from about, $2,000 to $5,000 a pound. I don't know what that one would be, but. So that's correct, Chris. It's one of those marginal ones that we probably wouldn't do unless we did it later on.
So is that why that and the involvement of stormwater credits is why the city was
Right.
running this
And
project?
they fell into the same trap we did. Our first sand filter, we had problems with it too, because we weren't out there supervising it. Remember that? In that farmland?
Insurance farm, yeah.
Yeah. And so we learned again, we also learned to spend more time negotiating with the property owner about what's gonna go in than we do actually doing the project. That's the hardest part of the project usually, is getting it right with the owner, right? So it's something that they can live with. And that wasn't done here either, so. It's kind of the same mistakes you make on your first project, even though we talked to them about it. But it's over with now. I just wanted to just mention to the board what the final conclusion was, and
But the water is not treated though. I mean, it's still.
no, down, the one wetland is being treated down there. It's only about 8 to 10% of the project.
Well, the other. So, and you noted that the city is asking for money to redo North Shore Trail, right? So if there's some grant dollars coming along, there will probably be some requirements to do some things as well. So that, it's not completely over.
No,
So, I mean, there will be future
opportunity.
things, right? So, it's just that, right.
But then we gotta stay involved early with them.
Right, if,
So-
I mean, I absolutely feel bad that this did not go as well as, or as planned, and again, it highlights that, and again, not that. Coordination meetings would have had a different outcome, but at the same time, just. Having more heads in a room on an ongoing basis about coordinated projects. We just don't talk as much as we used to when the prior administrator was there, so.
But the engineers, the engineer from the city has to be involved in things like this, and
Oh, sure.
we can get our engineers talking to their engineers. and make sure that we have a good outcome.
Yeah,
You know,
but,
I
but
mean-
again, the Ben and Moik is gonna have to pay for part of this. The city's suing them because they weren't out to supervise. So, that's what I heard anyways, and then the contractor's being sued also, so.
Mhm. Well, they have insurance for that.
Okay,
so
but
that's
let's,
good.
this is water over the dam. I think we've learned from it and we'll do a better job next time around if we get, and we'll get more involved. And if we can't get involved, at least we tried, so.
The last, President Schmaltz, I just want to make one more
Yes.
point, and it has to do, the bad PR that the watershed received from the Willow Point fiasco has, we spent the last 18 months trying to recover from that. And to have something like this happen, it's just a bit frustrating because, like I said, the city isn't really, from a public standpoint, being held or being it's not communicated to anyone that the problem resided with the city, and we as the watershed are taking all of the blame in the public sphere. So it goes back to the PR plan that we're trying to do, and when we're going to look at trying to acquire land or build something, all of that trickles down from little things like this that have a significant impact. And I feel bad because I don't see where the watershed went wrong. So unless I'm not understanding something.
Well, I think the city took the brunt of it because, I mean, for them to eat all this, they just wanted to get out from under the pressure.
They took
There
the
was
financial brunt, but the homeowner is blaming the watershed, which is the frustration.
Who is that? I'm not sure. Well, one person is possibly, only because, well, let's not talk about it anymore. It's not gonna get us anywhere, so. It's a concern. I agree with you, Chris. It's a concern and we'll have to be more sensitive to it as we move forward. We got some large projects coming up with the city. We'll start early with them and keep with them all the way on these projects. There's some life opportunity projects. They're gonna redo all of North Shore Trail up to 97. So all that erosion along the shoreline, that all has to be fixed, et cetera, et cetera. So there's plenty of opportunities for us to get involved. And then they're doing the downtown shoreline also. So they're gonna move the launches, so. And we still got your little park to fix over there. We haven't given up on that either, so.
Don't get me started on that because we'll be here at 9 o'clock still. So maybe we
Yeah.
want to let Baki and Manager
Well,
Baki and Manager Taves.
There was a question on that previously, so I can give a board quick update. So we're waiting, we have another grant, the month's grant, and maybe it was in my notes or not, but for that to probably, I think the deadline is in July, that we expect to hear for the second grant. So we have a DNR grant already for that. So we have the revised design. UR worked with Aid and the Conservation District. So to remove the rock, as much as rock component of it, to make it more of a natural shoreline piece. So it'll look good. I think it's gonna be, so we're trying to.
That's good news.
Right, and we're trying to, I'm trying to push some things that, such as, a tree somewhere, historically, somewhere along the line, there must have been a tree or two in the lake and Forest Lake in years gone by. So, and of course, it does a lot of things, both for the fisheries habitat, protecting shorelines, emergent vegetation, things like that. So we're trying to still work into that realm, but we're waiting on a second grant to be announced in July. So,
President Schmal.
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
One quick question on this. The stuff that was done in lieu of the North Shore Circle getting redone was part of the city's project, correct?
yes.
So what did the city have planned for restoration of the park that was used as kind of a staging ground for all of the materials that were needed for the installation of the new water for the domestic water?
For the road reconstruction, yeah, so. If I recall correctly, and I suppose Greg would probably know if he was here, but. The design was such that we're bringing. Certain portion of the water off the roadway into the park, and it's basically. Somewhat of a large rain garden at this point. And there's an overflow structure there that would allow it to leave, but rather than having direct discharge into the lake. Just across the slope of the park, it was reconstructed, so it would have a large amount of capacity, so. Yeah, maybe this morning would have been a good time to have gone out there to see what it looked like, your observation this morning about what that Hayward Avenue corner looked like, maybe that park. Had some volume of water in it from that storm. So, but that's a good thing that maybe we should go out there and try to capture a picture or two.
We got 3.5 inches. of rain.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Wow.
So,
Is that the McNamara Park?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is North Shore.
That's,
North Shore Park. So
so
it's
it's,
not bad.
just a lot. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment then.
So moved.
I'll second that motion. Troy, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye, motion carries. You have a question, Mike?
Did the board want to do a summary board direction? Emily took notes.
I don't think there were any.
Yeah, we should. Emily, do you
Yeah,
have,
there were a couple.
Emily, do you have any notes you took on the board direction?
Yes, thank you.
I
Emily.
took a few, but if the board doesn't think there's anything, then we cannot follow up on those things, but I can share my notes as they are.
But true, it's time America.
Go ahead and do them.
Go ahead, do them.
All right, Manager Anderson and President Schmaltz asked staff and engineers to investigate potential blockages in the Sunrise River downstream of the Forest Lake Outlet Lear, and to investigate the potential carp spawning areas around Forest Lake, such as Cranberry Lake. Manager Baki noted a couple minor tweaks to the crisis communication plan on page 12. I think we can just make these edits, add the board, remove commissioners. And then I took, we could consider on a case-by-case basis whether the CAC needs to be involved as early as step 2 or possibly later in the process, depending on the nature of the crisis. Manager Baki and Manager Anderson requested a summary of upcoming education workshops and then also a subsequent report on attendance numbers at those workshops. And Manager Anderson asked for a mid-season update on the water monitoring program. So there's general consensus that the full board would like for staff to proceed with those tasks, then we can do so.
Well, yeah, that's.
Yes, I think we do.
Yeah.
Point of clarification, one other piece that I had was that there was on the discussion for Dr. Davenport. And proceeding with something with this, rather than trying to simply try to work with, I mean, I could keep the Minnesota rivers, lakes and rivers informed. That was the intention to proceed with at least trying to see what a scope of work would look like.
Yes.
Yeah, we agree
Yeah.
with that.
Okay,
Like,
Part of the
like,
project you were
like
currently doing.
Carnelian
Yeah.
Marine did with her,
Okay.
yeah.
all right, just thank you for that.
All right, so I think we've got that in. Thank you, Emily, for capturing those clearly. And then I think,
There's just one thing on that, Emily, on the review that you did of the crisis plan. When you mentioned the CAC and the commissioners were listed instead of the board for us. Did you capture that?
yes.
Okay, because I missed that part. All right.
Okay, nothing else then. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Mhm.
Good night.
Yep,
Good
good
night.
night, take care,
Night.
bye-bye.